Hello everyone, it's Marie from Skeletorama here. Welcome back to my channel. How's everybody doing? So I'm doing okay. You're probably thinking to yourself, why do you have a Harry Potter box here in front of you? Well, it has to do with what this video is going to be. And this is, I repurpose all the things, right? So this has a really cute magnetic closure to it. And this is where I keep all my resin castings, right? So what we're going to do today is going to involve these resin castings. Oops. And getting it caught on my phone cord. So we have that there. Move this out of the way here. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is show you how you can take these, and this is just resin castings from different molds. Like these ones, these are the ones that Prima does, the Iron Orchid type ones. Finnebear. So that's what this one comes from here. This is that. And you pour the resin in and you go boop and you pop it out and it's great. Okay, so this or this one, this is Stemperia. It's a soft mold. And they're really deep. Can you see how deep that is? That's crazy deep. The nice thing is if you don't want something quite that thick, of course you don't have to pour as much resin in it, right? You can only pour it maybe halfway up, which is what I did on mine. So we have those, and it's basically to show you how to take this and turn it into this, right? This is the same exact thing. This actually comes from Stemperia mold. Here, this is that one right there. See? It's right there. But I did some different finishes on it. And, you know, a lot of times these come out like just you painted something with some metallic paint, but I was able to get, actually, this really does look like metal. So I'm going to show you what I did to get it that way. And in addition to the resin frame here, I also have some lovely frames from Bentley House Minis. So these are the 3D printed frames that Ara has on her site, and I will link to all that information down below. But we have square ones and we have round ones, and some different styles and things. So we're going to do the same thing with these. So I think I'm going to do a couple of them metal, but then I'm going to do a couple of them wood, probably in a different video or not on video at all, because as we know, my wood finishes are mediocre on a good day. So anyways, we're going to take a couple of these. And then I'm also going to be introducing in this video a new kit that I made, because I've got the new dollhouse to do. I have my other kit and I'll link all that stuff too for Etsy, where you can download the pictures and it's got the frames and you can make your own kind of 3D frames. But I don't have much I've got plenty of things for this size, but I don't have much for like a regular size, right? And so since Ara does this thing that I don't do well called measuring stuff, you know, these are actually scaled down to the right size for, say, a portrait frame. So that's what the new kit is called. So this is the 12th scale miniature portrait gallery, set 1, because I'm nothing if not optimistic that I'm going to get off my ass and do a set 2. Yeah, eventually, maybe, I don't know. So that's this, and these are designed specifically to fit with, you know, different popular 12 scale portrait frame as I chase it around the desk. Wow, okay. But these are designed to fit these, right? Some of them I designed specifically to fit the frames that she does. Right here. Some of the round ones, like so. But since I have all those other molds and frames, they're designed to fit those as well. So this one right here will fit the smaller size. Just because it's not made into an oval doesn't mean it's not going to fit an oval, right? Got that. We have this larger oval here. We have this larger picture frame here. So on ad nauseum. The ones that you see that are more square are more designed for a round frame, although look, I'm off a little bit on that one. I don't remember which one I measured it against, but Shimarahai, you can make it smaller, bigger, whatever you want to do. But yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to have, okay, we're going to ignore it. Pretend this never happened. Shh. So anyways, all these frames, but not round ones, So it'll fit all these different frames, right? And within that, you may not necessarily have it this way. Let's say you've got this frame, you really like this picture, you just mat it, right? I'll show you how to do that as well. So it'll be a couple different steps. First thing is going to be showing you how to get this finish here. The gold finish is pretty much the same. The gold never quite looks right to me, so generally what I'll do is I will gild them. So maybe we can do that. I don't know. We'll see. I don't do things quickly, so I'm sure just this finish and making a portrait of it will take long enough, right? So that's what we're going to do there. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way, and I'll start showing you some of the stuff that I used to get this. Okay, and for those of you who are wondering what was in that box, it's this. These are pot holders, Hogwarts House pot holders from Le Creuset. So that's what was in there, but that box is awesome. I love that box. Okay, so anyway, back to the matter at hand. So you can also use this, by the way. I have this mold. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on the camera, but it's this one here. And it makes little weapons. I use the same technique on this as well. So now I've got the little swords. These are eventually going to be, you know, like you see the weapons displays in like a castle or something over the fireplace. It's going to be something like that. I just quite haven't figured out what the heck I'm going to do with it yet, but that's how those turn out with that technique as well. Okay, so what are we going to need? Well, to make these things look like this, we're going to need some resin frames. So we'll go ahead and do these 4. This is a nice big one. I like this one because it's got like it's very steampunk. It's got the screw heads and all that stuff in there. Same with this, a smaller version of that. And then one of the large square frames and one of the large round frames. When it comes time to do our portraits, I have here, this is thin chipboard. Okay, so it's like a really super thick paper, but not super cardboardy, right? A lot of times when people pack stuff where they don't want it to get bent, they'll use this stuff, so I squirrel it all away till I need it. And then if we want to mat them, we're going to need some kind of paper to act as a mat. So this is Nina parchment paper. It's nice and thick. Or I also have the distressed mixed media heavy stock. The key is you want nice and thick, and you want like a cream color, because when you see paintings that have been matted, they're usually matted with a cream, so that way it doesn't detract from what's inside. But so we got those. We'll of course need our portraits. So once we get done with this, we'll figure out which portraits we want to do, and we'll do one matted, one not matted, etc. But I am going to do the same kind of technique as I did in the video previous for the kit with the art gallery. I'm going to show you how to make these look like an oil painting, and that's going to be using the matte super heavy gel or any 3D matte gel. So now for the piece itself, there's a couple things that I use. Number one, anytime I'm using metallic, I'm going to use a black gesso on my surface, because A, it gives it the tooth it needs to kind of hang on to the paint, and B, metallics really seem to pop off of black much better. If you're doing silver, you can get away with like a dark gray. If you're doing gold, believe it or not, kind of like a brown, like a reddish brown is a nice undercoat to it, because it'll really kind of add the warm tones to it. But we're doing silver today, so I'm going to be using the black gesso. Then I went to a different section than you would normally go to. Like for miniatures and things, people tend to go to where the acrylic paints are and this stuff. I went to where the hobby paints are. So for these gems, which you can see they're kind of chipping here and here because I didn't take any kind of precautions and just threw it in with some other stuff, and that's my own fault, so I'll have to repaint them. But this is actually model car paint. It's an enamel, and it's the testers like you would use on a model car. If you shake it up, this is the same thing I used on the Dutch oven that I did, because it gives you that same finish, and it will really emulate a jewel for you. And then for the actual silver, again, this is more of a model paint. So this is Tamiya, and it's a chrome silver, and this stuff is super, super, super shiny. You see that? And it's very thin bodied, so it doesn't, a lot of times with the acrylic paint, you'll have to put like 2 layers on to cover up the black and everything. and you're starting to build up mass and you're starting to lose a lot of detail. You will not lose detail with this because it's very, very thin, but it has really, really good coverage. So we're going to use this, and we'll use probably a mixture of things like this right here. This is another Tamiya hobby paint. This is called Panel Line Accent Color, or if you see anybody who does like the little figurines and things for the different tabletop gaming, they'll use these sorts of things, and it's a very thin bodied kind of a brown wash. We also have liquid acrylic. So this is acrylic paint, but liquid acrylics tend to be a lot more translucent, so you can see a lot more things through it. So it gets you a lot of color, but you can still see what's underlying it. And then finally this. So this is one of those you can buy on Amazon, because I had some spices that I got that came in a bag and I just couldn't deal with that. So I got some spice shakers. So that's what this is. This is just holding basically a black wash. This is black acrylic paint and water, and it's watered down, about 5% paint, 95% water. So this is what's giving all of these different tones to make this look like metal that had tarnish, but you polished it but didn't polish it super crazy good, so it's still got a lot of personality to it. Okay, and then of course we're going to need paintbrushes, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get that stuff set up, and then we'll come back and we are going to I think we're going to put the pictures on and get this gel drying first before we start this one. We'll see. We'll go back and forth. All right, so I brought the kit back in so we can decide which portraits that we want to use to fill our frames. This one, I'm just going to do the frame and I'm going to wait on, only because, I mean, even with matting, that's getting to be slightly ridiculous, right? That'd be like a triple matte sort of situation here, but I do want to use this for another one, so I might dig out one of my other older kits or something to do a picture for that one. But we're going to do these three. So let's say, I think this one is a little too big. Maybe this one here. Okay, so this one here, she fits nicely just if we cut it out. It's kind of got its own matting-ish to it, but we're going to ignore that. So we're going to probably do this one, I think. And then for the round one, what do we have round on the other sheet? There we go. Okay, so we'll do her for that one. And then this is a square one. So maybe we'll do this guy here. Okay, so she can maybe be on the wall next to him. He could be looking up at her all weird. I don't know, who knows? So let's go ahead and cut these ones out. We've got these ones here cut out. These I'm not going to worry about even trimming up until after I've glued them down, so that way you really know you got the edges. This one I am, because this one I'm going to mat. So I've got my scissors. I'm using my Tim Holtz tonic scissors, making sure the tonic logo is facing away from my finished edge so I don't get the micro serrations. And I'm going to cut right along this. So the reason I did that is because we want to make a mat for this one too. I think we'll go with the parchment paper for that. I'm just going to hold this here. And let's see, she's going in this frame here. So I'm going to cut this out way bigger than I need first. Okay, so we have this part here. Now with these, her frames are pretty deep. When you go to put it on your wall, you want it to sit like a regular frame would, so you want it to be even with the back. So you can make it so that it fits inside here, which is what I'm going to try to do. Failing that, I will just make it the size of the whole back. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so I've got my mechanical pencil here. So the first part I'm going to do is the mat. So this surface is going to end up being the back. So don't worry about, you know, writing on it. But what I want to do is I want to trace the inside of this frame here. And just in case, I'm going to trace the outside of the frame too. Yeah, I'm tracing that really good. Okay, so let's move this for just a minute. All right, so I have this now. So what I want to do is I want to cut this down to the size of this, but you have your pencil line, right? So you've got your inside. You want this to fit as perfectly as you can get it without having any gaps. There's a way to fix it if you have a gap, so don't worry about that too much. But we want it as close as we can to any gaps. So what we actually want to do is we want to cut just outside this pencil line, right? Because we know there was space for our pencil to draw, and it drew this line. If we cut on the inside, you're going to have just the tiniest bit of a sliver of reveal, and you don't really want that, okay? So we're just going to ignore the outside one. If I botch this, I'll do a different one. And I'm going to grab a longer pair of scissors. Same thing, tonic logo to the outside. The longer your scissors are, the less kind of herky-jerky movements you're going to have in order to cut it out. And I'm cutting just to the outside. So when I'm done cutting, I still want to be able to see that pencil line. And this is the part where I'm going to overthink cutting it. So my hand's going to shake and I'm going to make mistakes, but no worries. Okay, it's just paper. And with this, I am going just slightly farther out than I need to. See how it's got, you can still see, I hope this is focusing, because this thing has been giving me nothing but frigging headaches ever since I ate 2 chunks of my video last time. Oh, I was so pissed off. So we've got a little bit of reveal. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this in here, right? And I'm going to go, okay, how is this fitting? Well, I could use shaving a little tiny bit off that right-hand side, because once you get this onto your chipboard and everything, you're going to start building up mass, and it's going to be much harder to, you know, shave it off and everything and get it to fit in there. We want it to fit in there nice and perfect. So that's how much I took off. Okay, can you even see that? Okay. So once again, I got my frame. I'm going to just test fit it in there. It fits really good, except for this bottom corner here is just a little bit off. So I wasn't terribly straight, so I'm just going to do this little bit. Okay, so we're going in this way. Okay, see, that's fitting in there really nicely. Okay, so that's where we're going to stop. And we're not going to be able to get this off of there. Great. Okay, so still having it on the back. Now we have our portrait here. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to center it. And with this, just because it will bother you till the end of time if you don't, go ahead and measure to make sure you're actually centered. So that's about 5 millimeters. This is about 5 millimeters. So I'm just going to do, ouch, almost knocked my water over. Great. So I'm just going to do a little line here, because I know it's not centered left to right. I'm going to turn this, and then now I'm going to center this from left to right. This one I am going to eyeball, just because it's such a small bit. Okay, so now I've got that there. I have this meeting these, so now I'm going to trace around the portrait. Voila. Okay, so now I've got the circle on here. Okay. And then I'm going to cut this out too. This I'm going to use an X-Acto knife for, because this needs to be a little more precise. Is this the one? No, my other one I have any blade in. Where the hell did I put it? Okay. This one's got a brand new blade in it. I know, because the old one was so old that this actually just crumbled. So I'm going to go as very carefully as I can, slightly inside. So I'm going to give it about a millimeter maybe. So here's my line. I'm going to cut right about here. Okay, so I'm going to put on fast forward, I'll cut around that, and then I'll show you where it was. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can also kind of get yourself started and use your scissors, but I found that I'm actually better with the X-Acto knife. So voila, right? So you can see that there's a bit of paper between this and this because we want this mat to go over our picture and look nice and neat. So we're obviously not using this side, we're going to use that side, right? And then we can take our picture and see how she's going to fit under there. It gives you a spot to glue. This is also will show you where your not so great cutting was. So I've got a part here where I kind of flattened a little bit. So this one I am going to take my scissors, definitely tonic logo facing away. I'm just going to kind of round this out just a touch, because since this is a black frame, it's really going to show up. And you can kind of see where you've done any of that sort of flattening out when you're cutting it. Okay, so that there, and then this will go over here, and this will be kind of a matte finish. You can then take a pin and kind of do an edge around it. I'm not going to because I won't do it right. Maybe I will. I'll do it with gold. Yeah, I'll do it with gold. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so whenever I want to put gold color on stuff, I use these. This is a Deco Color Premium Gold pen. This is a chisel tip. A lot of the ones you'll see, depending on where you are in the craft store, are going to be a fine tip. Just make sure you get a chisel tip because you need it. It's a nice small chisel tip. If I haven't used it in a while, I tend to kind of like to just press down for a second, make sure it's flowing nice, and it is. Here's the trick to this. You want your pen coming in from the back side, because if you slip, your pen will tend to go to the back. If you're doing it from this side and you slip, you're going to go on the front. You don't want to go on the front, you want to go on the back. So I'm coming to the back, and I'm just going to bring my pen around the edge very, very carefully, just to change the color of the edge of the paper. It will naturally go around and show a little bit on the front too. But right now I'm just concerned with getting that edge. So it looks less like I cut a circle out of a piece of white paper and more like an intentionally finished mat. Going around and have completed the circle. Okay, so now you can see just the tiniest hint of gold. Because you're working at such a small scale, if you think about it, you know, the real mat itself would have just the smallest reveal of it anyway. So you definitely don't want to go overboard with it. If that's not enough for you, go back around and kind of angle your marker a little bit more this way, and it'll hit that edge and it'll make it a little bit wider. Resist any temptation to come around this way because you probably will slip. But hey, if you're real good at that, go for it. As Nick the Booksmith says, I'm not your mom. All right, so now we have this, and if we place this on top of our portrait very carefully, now you can see it looks a little bit more finished, right? Well, I have to hold it centered, but it doesn't look quite as cut out of a piece of paper as it did a minute ago, right? And then these will be then going in here. She won't be lopsided much, you know, and it'll look a lot better. We can also maybe go around this outer edge. Yeah, I think I will go around that outer edge of that mat with gold as well. Never fails, because I'm always, yeah, I'm totally done with my pen, but then I'm not. Okay, so same thing. I'm going on this outer edge with my pen aimed towards the back. So if I slip, which I usually do, like I just did right there, it's going to show up on the back, not the front. When I do junk journal stuff, I edge stuff in gold like this all the time. Back always looks like a hot mess, but the front looks pretty good. Can you still screw up and hit the front? Yes, you can. Have I done it? Maybe. There we go. I'm angling it just a little bit more out because it's not quite wide enough for me. There we go. That's better. Okay, there we go. See, we have a nice gold border on there, and it looks a lot more finished now, and it'll look even more finished in the frame. Even though it's going in a silver frame, we're not going to think about that right now, are we? All right, so we have our little mat done. In order to add the same type of height that you would see in these things, you can put this onto the chipboard also. I'm probably not going to do that because the chances of my cutting this out correctly twice are very slim. So I think it'll be just fine this way. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and glue these to this. We're going to glue these three. This will get glued on top of this here in a few minutes, but so we need to leave extra room for her for sure. So with that, I'm going to use glue stick. So I've got my Scotch Create glue stick, which is nice and strong. I have a piece of paper that I can glue onto so I don't get glue everywhere. I probably still will, but this will reduce the amount that this warps. You can put this on with PVA glue just fine, but just know it's very, very liquid. This is still a liquid glue, but it's not going to warp things and tweak them out as much. And see, it's strong enough to glue the top on. There we go. Okay, so we'll grab this one. Put a liberal amount of glue on the back. We'll just put this down here. Move to a different part of it so you don't put it right down in the glue that just went over the edge on this one. This way you can get your edges really, really well. I love when it does that. It's so much easier to pick up. All right. And then her, we're going to leave extra room. So we'll put her about here, kind of out here by herself. And now we are going to mat her picture. So this one I am going to use the liquid glue just so that I have a little more control over it. I don't want glue kind of building up on the edges of this. That's where these little fine needle bottles help so much when you're doing miniature stuff. You can really aim the glue to small places. All right, so in theory she'll be more or less straight, but you know, I'm not making any promises. Okay, there we go. So we've got her stuck down. You can do the technique to make it look like an oil painting before you put this down, but I just felt like putting it down first. I can still do it. All right, so now that these guys are stuck down, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to kind of roughly cut around them so that we've got a smaller canvas to work with. Okay, so making sure these are good and stuck down. Now we're going to do this part. So these are going to tend to want to bow this way because, like I said, this is still a liquid glue, even though it's a glue stick. When we put this on, it's going to want to bow the other way. So in theory, doing both of them right after each other is going to help it stay flatter once it is finally dry. Okay, so this is my matte super heavy gel. So it will dry clear. What I want is a little bitty paintbrush. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to brush it really carefully onto the portrait. So what this matte gel does is it's designed to be used with acrylic paints. It'll extend your drying time out a little bit with acrylic paint, and it will help you get those, you know, like when people paint with oil paints, you can see kind of the brush strokes and it has some height to it. This will give your acrylic paint that same sort of look and feel of an oil painting. But on these, what you can do is you can put it on here and then kind of go, you know, here's where her hair is, and here's where her outfit is, and you can simulate little brush strokes as if it's a real painting, right? So something like that. Okay, and again, this is going to dry clear, so we don't have to worry about that. So when I'm doing this, I usually paint over the entire painting first with a nice thin layer of it, and then I mess about with doing the little brush strokes and stuff, because it's just easier once you have some of it on here to do it that way. Okay, so on him, same kind of thing. I'm going to just do like his outfit as if I were painting it. Haha, it would look like complete crap if I painted it, I'll tell you that. I cannot draw. Same thing with his head, and then just kind of, you know, break this stuff up so it looks less like big brush strokes and more like an artist was actually doing something. And voila. So we're just gonna let these dry while we do the rest of the stuff. It's gonna be a very subtle effect that it has on it, but the other thing it does is it helps sink it in, make it look more like a painting than a picture that you know, printed and cut out. And it also protects it, so it's giving you a nice layer of sealant on top of your picture. And so set these to the side, and we will get about doing these ones. So our first step for these is going to be, we are going to coat them in the black gesso. You don't have to coat the back. I usually just do. I don't know why, I'm weird that way. I just don't like flipping it over, because if, you know, maybe this sticks up a little bit and I don't want you to see glaring white under there. At least it's black, it'll blend in and everything. All right, so I've got this. And I've got a larger brush, so I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward, and I'm going to go ahead and paint these, get in all the nooks and crannies. We're going to let it dry, and then we'll flip it over and hit the back, and then we'll check the front to see if there's any white spots to make sure we get them. All right, so we're gonna let these dry for a little bit here, and then we will turn them over and paint the back. I'll probably do that off camera, and then I will come back to you when the front and back are painted. But just make sure when you're looking at these, you look from all different angles, because that's when you're going to see the little white spots, and you always will. Also, if you don't have black gesso, don't worry about it. Just use black acrylic paint. I just happen to prefer the finish of gesso when I'm painting, especially metallics. So, okay, see you guys back in a minute. So in the interim, while this stuff here was drying, I did go ahead and look for some more pictures that have fit this one here. So we have this one here, but I do have this one in the Mad Scientist house, so I'm probably not going to use it. And I have these two. So this one, I mean, it cuts out a lot of the image, but it does still leave plenty of it there. And then of course, this one here. So their friends aren't going to be in the picture, basically, but they will. So, and I just love this picture. They're so cute. So I think what I'll do before I put these on there and do the whole matte medium like I did with the other ones, I'm going to wait until we've painted this so I can kind of see which one in the silver frame then looks better with it, because this is really light. So it may kind of blend in a bit too much, but it may pop really good with this one. So anyways, that's where we're at with that. So now we are going to do the part where we paint these silver. And for that, we are going to use this. Now, again, this is a hobby paint. This is flammable. This is recommended only for adults. Not sure why. I'm sure it's the different chemicals they have in it. This I had to get from Amazon. But you can absolutely use just regular acrylic silver paint. You don't have to use this. It's just, I really love how silver this gets. It's really shiny, and you'll see it. But yeah, it'll work with just regular acrylic paint as well. So this, I shake it up really good. And look at that, so pretty. All right, so now we are going to paint these frames here with this, and hopefully I'll stay in screen, because of course my mirroring software, nothing changes. It's still being a pain in the tail. So I'm sorry about the hands here, but clearly I did these. So anyways, I'm going to fast forward through this part. I'm going to paint these, and then I will come right back to you. There we are. Now, if you notice that this stuff is very, very liquid. It's got the consistency of like almost water, maybe a little thicker than water. It really gets down in there in these, and this is one coat. I'm done with the silver after one coat with all these little nooks and crannies. So it's really, really good stuff. So if you're painting a lot of things with metal finishes, you really might want to consider some of that. So I'm gonna paint the rest of these, and then we'll let it dry completely, and then we'll go on to the next spot. All right, so I'm gonna put these on the glass so that way any wet bits aren't gonna stick and pull paper off or anything. This cleans up with water, which is brilliant. So I'm gonna go clean me up with water because yeah, that looks great. And let these completely dry, and I'll come back to you with the next step. But again, I mean, look at this. You see every little detail in there. If you did this with regular acrylic paint, you probably would have lost some because it's a lot thicker and it tends to like fill in those things. On Aries frames, you can really see the texture that's in the front of it. There's these really fine ridges, and there's this little braid looking detail type stuff to it. You can really see it with this, and it's going to pop out way more when we put the next finish on it. So see you in a few minutes. All right, so this is probably pretty dry enough. So now we have our frame, and it looks like metal. It's very shiny, but it looks like very flat metal, right? There's no personality to it. It just looks like something that's been painted, which Kelsapries, it is just something that's been painted, but we don't want it to look like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to try a few different things. So we have this. This is the panel line accent color. This is the same. See how really watery that is? What it's designed to do is like when you're doing, say, a model tank, and you want to highlight all the lines in the metal and all the rivets and everything. There's no way in hell you are going to be able to paint that line and not have it look absolutely ridiculous. So this is real thin bodied, and it'll get in there and it soaks in and goes right into that line and gives you your contrast that you need. Well, it does the same with this. So what we'll do is we'll do one of them with this. Again, you can get this on Amazon. This is also extremely flammable, and for adults, you know, or like 14 and over kind of thing. Certainly not children, because it is, you know, fairly dangerous apparently. And then we will do the liquid acrylic on another one. And then we will do the black wash on a third one. Then whichever one, you know, we like the best, we'll do on the fourth one, or whatever it is. But so that's what we're going to do there. So this we need to shake up because as you can see, it's kind of settled a little bit. And we'll do that on this one. So I got a paper towel here, and I like to do that when I'm doing these because I don't want to pick them up while I'm putting the finish on them. So this has a little brush with it. As you can see, this brush, see how tiny that brush is? Let me see if I can show you. See that? It's a tiny, tiny brush. But again, it's because it's designed to get into the lines of panels, hence the name of the stuff, right? So you can just kind of dip it in, and you can sort of brush it onto stuff. And as I brush it onto here, what you're going to see is it's going to go into those cracks and crevices. I'm not going to do that with a little brush because I'll be here all day with this. But the other secret weapon we're going to have to doing any of these is going to be some water here in a spray bottle. So brush this on here. We're going to let it go wherever it wants to go, especially into the cracks and stuff in there. And then I'm going to take my spray bottle. I'm just going to lightly mist it a few times. And then maybe dab with this one. This one's got a little more of an oil base than anything, I think. It sure smells like it. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It's got something in there. Don't drink it. All right. So there we go. So there's our first layer of it. So let's get some like the darker spots off because I did go a little crazy with it. Okay. So there's that. We're going to set this aside and let this dry. And then the next one we're going to do is the liquid acrylic. So this is the Art Alchemy liquid acrylic. It's in burnt sienna. Shake this up too. Going to keep the water bottle handy. And if you haven't used it in a while, sometimes it's kind of hard to get the lid off. Off you go. There we go. Because acrylic paint is a type of plastic. So it really shows its plasticness there. Okay, well, there's plenty there, so we'll do the big frame with that one. So this I'm going to water down a bit anyway with my spray bottle there. And we'll get a larger one. We're going to do this frame here. So now, when I'm doing this technique, I usually will use the liquid acrylic the most. Okay, so let's do this. Apparently it has some gesso in there still. Cute. All right, well, so it's going to be a brown and black wash, whatever. Okay, so we're going to put this on here. I'm going to cover this nice and liberally. Get a whole ton. You're thinking, okay, you're turning it brown. Well, yeah, for a minute. It won't stay that way, I promise. Unless you move too slow, in which case it'll dry, and then yes, it will stay that way. But we're not going to let it do that. All right, so we just slop this on here real good, hit all our surfaces. Now we're going to bring this back, and we're going to spray the heck out of it. And we're not going to touch it. Okay, if some of the spots are kind of dark and making you a little nervous, you can just maybe dab some of it up with a paper towel. Usually I just leave it alone because liquid acrylic is very translucent. Okay, we're just going to leave this here. We're going to set this whole piece off to dry. What you're basically doing, it's called a zenithal highlight, basically. So you're highlighting everything with your darker color, obviously, that's going to be the recesses and stuff, and you want to clear off anything that's going to be your surfaces. So if the sun was shining straight on this, the parts that the sun's going to hit first are the ones that you want to get most of this brown color off of, and you want to let it get into the recesses where light would have a harder time getting, and that's what's giving you your details. Okay, so we're going to scoot this over, and this will lighten as it dries. And we'll get another paper towel because I done messed that one up. And we're going to do the same sort of thing. So we're going to do a better job of rinsing this because I clearly didn't do a very good one. Okay, there we go. So let's do the round one. We're going to use a black wash. So again, this is just black acrylic paint. It's not gesso. It's just black acrylic paint, about 5% paint, 95% water. So you want this nice and thin. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to put that on here. And we're going to put a ton of it on, and we're just going to let it pool up on here. We'll just kind of brush some of the extra off. And then we're going to let that dry too. And I'll be back to y'all in a few minutes when it's dry, and it looks like I got this all wet here. Oops. Okay, so see you guys back in a few minutes. All right, so everything has had a chance to dry here a bit. And as you notice, this obviously is going to look different from these, and these look different from this, and this looks different from this. The reason for that is this actually has probably 5 or 6 layers. I went back and forth with some different things, experimenting. When you're kind of experimenting and stumbling across things, it's a good idea to maybe write down the steps that you took when you start seeing something cool showing up. Did I do that? Of course I didn't do that. So I don't remember how many layers that was, but it was a few. So what I think we're going to do, even though these now have some nice detail, some nice personality, they don't look flat like they did. They're still not quite where I want them. I do kind of like the warmer tones of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to do black wash on it. And these ones, I'm going to do a wash with the acrylic, but I'm going to use a lot less. And I'm going to water it down a bit more so it's a bit lighter, because that's the difference between these two. Then I'm going to show you how we can, once the black wash is done, knock back a little bit of the harshness that this has without painting it with this, because then that's a vicious cycle. You're just going to paint with this, and you have to rewash everything over from scratch. So we're not going to do that. There's a couple ways to kind of tweak stuff, although it does still look good. But before we do that, I do want to decide between the two images here and see which one I wanted to do. So let's take a look here. So this looks nice in there. But I did really want this. How do these, oh, see, these do look good in there. So yeah, yep, I'm gonna have to go with the Highland Coos because they're just too cute. Look at those. Okay, so anyways, so what I'll do is this one I'll do the matte medium off camera, and get it caught up to speed with our other portraits. And then these, I'll go ahead and put on fast forward as I do the next layer of washes on this. Let them dry and come back, and hopefully these will be kind of where I want it. I'll show you how to tweak this one, and then we'll put them together and we'll have some pretty cool portraits. So yeah, on to the finish. Okay, so these ones are dry now, and again, they're getting closer to this, but this is a lot brighter than these, right? So if I hold this up and this up, it looks like I left this out in the garage for way too long or something, but hopefully you can see this. Look at how much detail, though, we can see in this now, because when you looked at it straight out of the package, it just looked plain, flat, whatever. Was there any detail? You couldn't see it, but as soon as you start putting finishes on it, now it's bringing out that braid detail in there, and now you can see kind of the ridges in there, so it looks kind of like wood or something. So it's really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it back to a little brightness. How do I do that? With that. So this is a wax. The reason I don't put the wax on first or anything before any of these washes, they won't stick to it very good. Because the base of this is beeswax. So, you know, hence it being a wax stir. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, we'll start with this one, and I'm going to put a little bit of this on my finger, just a little bit. And all I want to do is I want to go along and I want to kind of hit these highlights of it. So I'm just hitting the highest areas, and what that should do is start giving me some contrast back. And some brightness back. So see, here it is with both of them. Okay, we've got the wax over here and the non-waxed over here. It's just kind of bringing some of that brightness back to it. But you don't want to go overboard, because you can, and what it'll do is it'll end up filling in all your details, which is definitely not what you want. So you just want to hit it real light with this. But the key with this is just kind of experiment. You don't have to experiment on resin frames or any of that right away. I mean, you can take a piece of cardboard and you can do the same stuff and apply the same finishes to it, and that will kind of let you experiment without it costing you anything. So see, on this one you can really see the difference. I could see the difference in my mirroring software too if it wasn't a piece of garbage. Anyway, Kuyu. Anyway. So we're just going to hit some of these high areas, bring back a little bit of that shiny, and then that's going to be all we have to do. So see, now it looks less like I left it in the garage for 6 weeks, right? I'm going to kind of hit these inner parts especially, because they're going to be right next to the picture, so we'll want them a little bit brighter, and I already did that. Duh. Okay. Same with this one. And this one's got these cool little seals on it, like things here and here. So now if you could do a wood finish on it, which I'm just not very good at doing, you could have those be like your metal part. It'd look really cool. Okay, so look at that one. And then this one here is the one that's got the most contrast, obviously, because it's the larger one. And so we're just going to hit the high areas and the inside of the frame with this. Really, little goes a long way. If you wanted to, at this point, you could even do like a two-toned, you know, effect and do like another color. I don't know, gold and silver together can either look really good or really odd, you know. There's really no middle ground on it for some reason. I don't know. All right, so there we go. Voila. And so even though this one turned out brighter, probably because I did a bunch of different layers and different orders on top of all of that, these still look very good. They still look metal. They're not quite as shiny, but these are going to look a little more appropriate on a dark wallpaper, which is what they're going to be on. But we can definitely agree that, I mean, these are the same substance, but it really doesn't look like it, does it? This does not look like plastic now. It looks like metal. So now all we have left is to put our pictures back in our picture frames, or back, put them in them. So we have our 3 portraits here, and then we have our little friends here. So I'm going to show you a few different ways to put these in there. First off, we're just going to cut these apart like so. Okay, so we're not putting anything in that one, but this one here. I forgot which one went in which. Okay, so this one is the one that's designed to sit in here pretty much exactly. So what we're going to do, since we know that this fit prior to that, is we are going to go ahead and cut. And now be very careful and cut on the exact edge. You don't want to make your gold disappear, but you do want to get close enough that you're not adding any additional material so it'll fit in there correctly. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to trim that other side down just a tiny bit to get it to do that, because I can see the cardboard just ever so slightly on part of it. Oh, and here we go. Okay, so there's that. Oh, and I almost forgot to show you, this is what this looks like when it's dry. Okay, can you see that extra texture to it? So it looks a little more like a painting. When I did these before, I did them on a canvas paper, but this is just regular, oh, what is it? The word I'm looking for, cardstock, I guess. It's a little thicker than copy paper. You could certainly use copy paper if you wanted to, since you're putting it on this stuff. So we have this one here. We're going to make sure now that it fits. And it's a little tight. So instead of forcing it, I'm going to put it this way, make sure, okay, we need to go in a little bit on here. I think I can see where that was. And I'm taking like literally just a sliver. That little sliver is all that's coming off. But that's all that's kind of stopping it from going in here correctly. Okay, so now, ta-da, it fits in there perfect. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use some glue to secure this. I'm just going to use my regular Scotch Create craft glue. And I'm going to put a bead of it along the inner part of this frame here. It doesn't matter where, because this is going to sit in there nicely. And when we put it in, it's going to contact the glue on its way down. So that's why I put it up slightly higher than it's going to be. I'm going to sit this in here, and then I'm just going to push it straight down so that it's all the way level. So since I put the glue kind of in the center, it sort of contacted the glue all the way down. But now I just want to make sure that this is very flat against my work surface, which will make it nice and flat against the back. See? And you can see where the glue got kind of pushed down by the chipboard on its way down, and now it connects. So we got one done. Get this out of the way here. And this, so the other ones are going to be attached differently though, because we need a little more secure of an attachment. So this one, for example, if we cut right around the edges, it should have room to attach to, but I don't quite trust it, right? So I'm going to use a different adhesive for this. I'm going to use my E6000, or sometimes you can use like super glue will work. I wouldn't use this just because the dry time's a little long on it, and I don't quite trust it for that application since I'm going resin to cardboard. So I'm just going to put a nice thin layer of this, and we are going to, since the edges of this frame are nice and straight, we're just going to put this on here and stick it down as is. We're going to let it dry a bit and then we will cut it off. Okay, so we're going to center her right where we want her, and we're going to set this over to the side. We're also going to use E6000 for this, but see the edges of this? You do not want to go cutting around the edges of this. So we're going to take this frame, we're going to sit it on here and see kind of, okay, how far out does it go? All right, so we should probably go just on the outside of our picture. So let's leave a nice little, I don't know, what's that, about 1/8 of an inch border around it. We want just enough that we have a nice amount of gluing surface to stick down. There we go. Okay, so let's put him in his frame, and then we'll turn it over to verify. Yeah, see, we got plenty on the back. It's nice and thin, so it's not going to show up too bad, you know, when it's stuck on the wall if you view it from the side, but there will be a trick to that too, because there's a trick to everything, really. So again, we're going to take the E6000, we're going to put on the edge of the frame, because we don't want to get it onto the portrait itself. You can wipe it off if you do, but we want to try to avoid that. But we definitely want to make sure that we have plenty of there to contact the frame and to hold everything nice and secure. Okay, so we're going to get the damn scissors out of my way. And I'm going to center this, and I'm going to press it down. Okay, and then go back to the back. See, we got it mostly. There's a little bit of overhang of the glue, but that doesn't matter. So we got these two here. Now, with those two, it would probably behoove me to take like a couple of acrylic blocks and just kind of sit those on it. Just kind of weigh them down and press them in there real good. Okay, this was the easy one. That one's done. All right, so now we have our cows. So what we need to do is we need to cut this down a little bit. Let's flip this over and see how this looks. Yeah, we can go about, let's say here and here. So let's go ahead and cut the one side. And then we'll put this where it goes. And we'll pick it up again. We'll go about halfway on this, so about here. And ignore the poor cow that just got cut in half. It was a terrible accident. Yeah. All right, so we got that there, and we want to turn it over, make sure it's not going to be visible from that side anywhere. So maybe we straighten it out here. What happens if I put it straight? Is it straight? It is straight. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing, just on a larger scale. We've got our E6000. Put a little bit more on this one because it's a bit larger. So a little bit thicker of a layer will kind of spread itself out a bit. Because again, we don't want to try to cut around these edges either. So we'll do this, and we'll center this how we like it. And make sure, see at the bottom, you can see that kind of sticking out. We definitely don't want that. Okay, so we'll put it here, flip it to the back. We're good. And same sort of thing. I'm going to take this acrylic block, I'm going to sit it on here, and then I'll take one of the 1, 2, 3 blocks and weigh it down with this, because this will distribute that evenly over this whole piece. Okay, and we will let these dry, and I will come back to you one final time to go over what we did. Okay, so these aren't completely dry, but this one is dry enough that we can go ahead and trim off the excess. So since this is a nice straight piece, you just take your scissors and you're going to trim around the edge so that your back piece is going to be even with your frame, And when you put it against the wall, you're really not going to be able to see the edge of it because, you know, their eye's going to think it's the edge of the frame. Now, that being said, it will be a different color, and we know that. So generally what I'll do is I'll just hit this with either some silver paint or I've got like a black Copic marker. You got to have a steady hand though if you're going to do that edge in black Copic marker. On this one here, for example, I will definitely hit it with the black Copic marker along this edge, so that if you do see it, you're not seeing the cardboard, you're seeing just black, and your eye won't be able to really pick it up. So these work great for that. So let's take the weight off of this, and we will set these here, and voila. So that's what we have. So that was the, again, 12 scale miniature portrait gallery kit, and there are a whole ton. I did count it, but I've already forgotten how many it is. It's a bunch, but we have all sorts of different sizes for you, all kinds of different portraits, pictures, that sort of thing. There is one picture, no, two. There's this 3. Wow. Cabinet card, Civil War tintype. So all sorts of different choices for you. But anyways, that'll be on my Etsy there. Again, these were the Prima molds, the Finnabair ones, but these right here are the ones that actually look more realistic, especially this one. This came out really good. These are, surprise, surprise, of course, not a surprise at all, from Bentley House Minis. And again, this comes in, I believe it's 4, it says 4 frames on there. And you get all sorts of, there's a couple designs we didn't even use yet, but these ones look like they'd be probably better done as wood because they lend themselves a little more to wood. But these look like they'd be good as metal, so that's why I went with those. But anyways, so that's what's up with that. So I will be coming back fairly soon, not sure when, because of course, you know, I'm starting back from scratch with the stupid filming problems, but I'm starting to get them under control a little bit. But next up will be probably one of the dollhouse kits. So again, it was either the bigger size cafe bakery one, or this is the cat cafe one. Sorry about the glare, but it's just like a cafe with some cafe things, but it's got, you know, cat trees and cats and all kinds of cute stuff. So it'll be one of these two, or maybe it'll be both, who knows. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you at least try to experiment with some different ways to get those metallic finishes and make them look a little bit more realistic. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bien nog, Bye.